Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask that we all take our seats? If there's anybody in the foyer, may we take our seats, please? Just 2 or 3 or more people need to find their seats, and then we can formally start. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As a means of reintroduction, my name is Sigelela Ndlazi. I will be the program director for tonight. It is a great honor to be part of this event. It's a great honor to serve in any capacity, actually, because the methods through which we achieve our mission and goals at the University of South Africa is something that I am personally very proud of, and I am very honored to be a part of. We call ourselves the biggest university on the continent which serves humanity through scholarship, through engagement, through mentorship, through all kinds of modalities for the benefit of the African child, for the benefit of all who call themselves African and beyond. So it is indeed such an honor to be part of this very prestigious event. Yes, so welcome to everybody in the room here this evening. Just before we begin, may I ask that we all make sure that our phones are on silent. We are also streaming this event for those who cannot be here. So it is very prudent of us to make sure that the sound isn't distorted in any form or fashion. May I also express to the attendants tonight that the bathrooms, for anyone who needs to use the bathroom, are to my far right, your left, past the bar and the catering portion, and past the sculptures as well. Thank you very much. To formally begin this event, I would like to offer my sincere greetings to the Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of South Africa, Professor Puleng Lingabula, in her absence. I would further like to welcome the Executive Dean of the College of Law, Professor Olawusa John Gole, also in his absence. I would further like to welcome and greet the Deputy Executive Dean, Professor Budeli Nemakonde. I would also like to offer my greetings to the Director of the School of Criminal Justice, Dr. Lebogang Morodi. Further, I would like to offer my greetings to the Director of the School of Law, Professor Angelo Dube. I would also like to extend a heartfelt welcome and appreciation and acknowledgement for the management structures of all the different colleges within the university. I would further like to welcome the chair of departments within the university. And last but definitely not in the least, I would like to welcome the speakers this evening, the attendants this evening, both physically here in this room, and all those who are tuned in via other modes of technology and connection, namely live stream. For those who just walked in, welcome. Again, my name is Sigelela Ndlazi. I am so honored to be your program chair here this evening. So when I was asked to take part in this event here tonight as program chair, I sat this afternoon and I thought to myself, particularly in connection with the theme of this conference, the theme being the intersection of justice and decoloniality, strategies for the transformative and reformative agenda. You know, it's not lost on me that some may construe gatherings such as these as mere academic events. Academic events, you know, or perhaps whose purpose is just to shine a light on a couple of papers, engage in a few discourses and academic conversations, But to the conscientious person, we understand that this event represents much more than that. We understand that this event, or perhaps this type of events hosted by the University of South Africa, represents an effort, a conscious and prudent effort to analyze not only the historical and past difficulties that we, the people of Africa and black people, have suffered, but also to reform and to usher in certain standards that we will hold ourselves to and that we expect the entirety of the world to hold themselves to. And these standards are not novel in any nature. These standards are not new or cutting edge. These standards are standards which some people have held themselves and for their own kind for millennia, but have prejudicially excluded a few in the engagement and the enjoyment and the living within those standards. So it is then our position, it is then our job to engage ourselves, to create space and spheres for ourselves, to make sure that our voices are heard, to make sure that our opinions are listened to make sure that the issues that impact our communities are understood. So it is the very essence of conferences like these and events like these that we always have to be sober to the understanding that it is more than just the attendance, it is more than just the theme, it is more than just, you know, the items on the program over the past 3 days. It is more than that. It is a lifelong mission to eradicate things that have targeted us for millennia and things that have crippled us socioeconomically within the human rights sphere. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to officially welcome you to the closing evening of the 3rd annual conference hosted by UNISA in close partnership with the African Peer Growth Network. A round of applause, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, moving right along, you will note on your programs that we were meant to commence this evening at 1600 hours. Again, to make sure that we are all partaking in a substantive and meaningful manner, we had just to pause the programs just for a few minutes to make sure that more people join in and more people engage and can benefit from this event. So we do apologize for starting at this time, which was not previously demarcated in the program. So to kick off the event for this evening, I would like to welcome the Deanery representative, Professor Angelo Dube, to offer us an official welcome on behalf of the Deanery. A round of applause, please.
Sanbonani, Dumela, Minjani. I can't go further than that. You see, good morning is much easier than good afternoon or good evening. And us Zulu speakers, it's much easier. Sanbonani, whether it's in the morning or the evening, it's going to be the same. The English came and they gave us good morning. And you can't be stubborn and decolonize the language and continue with good morning even at this level. But again, because you don't want to trend, you will not say good morning at this level. I will stand on the protocols as Sigalela has given them. I represent the Deanery of the College of Law, Professor John Olautsekole, our acting Dean, and his deputy, Professor Buteli Mfarine Makonde. I would also like to acknowledge in our midst some of our guests who are here. Captain Mpeti Ndelala, a fellow captain that we often cruise the skies with, is with us today at this gathering. Thank you, Captain, for coming through. And before I actually speak tonight, I would like to acknowledge the team that worked with us to produce what we produced here today. I will be asking you to just briefly stand up for 3 seconds and then sit down. when I mention your name, so that the people can know who are the individuals that brought us this glorious event. We have, of course, Director of the School of Criminal Justice, Dr. Lebogang Morodi. He was instrumental in bringing this together as well. And we have the Acting Manager in the Office of Strategic Projects within the Deanery, Dr. Lindelwa Mhlongo. And we have the team that supported through and through. Mamuka at the back. We have Ms. Dingan to the left. We also have Mr. Sipomachi here, Mr. Thomas Mabala, Mr. Tendani Msekwa, Ms. Vele Azimpeleli. I hope my vendor was on point. And we have Ms. Vumile Sibiya. I call them the youth. And like the youth, they're not here now. It's a Friday. They will come back. But colleagues, thank you for congregating with us here today. This is the culmination of the 3rd annual conference. We started in 2021, 2022. In 2021, we were in Cape Town. 2022, we're here in Pretoria. 2023, we're still here in Pretoria, and we'll be making an announcement about 2024. So many papers were presented over the past 3 days. We sent a call for papers early this year. We received over 50 abstracts. We put together a scientific committee that went through all the papers that were submitted, and we all agreed of the 50-something papers that were submitted, 40 of those would be accepted for this conference. Now, it is not common for a conference to receive such a number of high-quality scientific papers. We've had conferences running on 20 papers, running on 15 papers. So for this engagement that we've had with the University of the Land to actually attract over 50 papers, out of which we chose 40 to go with for this conference, speaks to the quality and the value that UNISA is adding in the lives of Africans across the continent. Deliberations were held over the course of the past 3 days, and you might be asking yourselves, what then from here? As you might have noticed from the call that we issued last year, there is a book that we are publishing in 2024. The book is on the teaching of international law in Africa. So the papers that were under Theme 7 will be considered for that book on the teaching of international law. We're basically exploring how are universities teaching international law? What are the gaps? How are we doing in terms of decoloniality and Africanization of this particular subject? Because we want that when the time comes for us to have our products practicing before the ICJ, practicing before the ICC, practicing before the African Criminal Court, they must come with a balanced view. They mustn't leave South Africa, go to the ICJ, and perpetuate Eurocentric world views. They must get there and become agents of transformation as we have trained them at home. So that book, we are in engagement with UNISA Press, who's going to be publishing that book. We're looking at about 10 to 12 chapters from that book. The other papers that are not in that theme will be considered for special issue journal publications. Now, that process is not automatic. It is high quality, well-written papers that will be selected and considered for those journals. We do not aim to kill the African child. Ours is not to simply reject that paper because it is not up to scratch. We believe in the true spirit of the University of the Land and in the true spirit of the African Peer Growth Network, that those authors whose papers are at that level can still be assisted to produce or to convert them into scientific writings of high quality. And we will be doing that. We will be offering that service and that assistance to take those papers to a level where they will be acceptable and they will then be considered for publication in these scientific journals. So going forward, we do have on the tables, as you will notice, calls for papers for the next conference, because in our organization, we work ahead of time. We don't plan a conference last week to do it the next week. We're already planning for the 2024 conference, which we are taking to the Republic of Cape Town. So if you have that idea, perhaps an idea came to you because you were listening to the presentations there, this is the time to go back, fashion that idea along one of the themes here, and make sure that before 30 March 2024, you've submitted your paper, your abstract for consideration. And then we can see you at the next high-level conference that we will be holding in 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, mine is to thank you on behalf of the Deanery for coming here, spending 3 days with us, sacrificing your Friday to come and be with us at this dinner, and the fact that you've shared your scholarship with us. We've seen presentations from colleagues from as far afield as Kenya, as far afield as Mauritius, as far afield as New York, as far afield as Geneva. Our presentations were scattered all over the globe. On the African continent, we had representations from different nationalities, different countries that came and presented here. It is in the nature of this conference to be an international conference, to be a multi-nationality, multi-disciplinary, transdisciplinary and interdisciplinary conference, to be very, very diverse, and we saw that happening this week. The robustness of the presentations, the robustness of the engagements, you saw that for the first 2 days we were visited by scholars from the Sebokeng area near the Vaal. Those are high schoolers who are in grade 11 and doing grade 12 next year. We did that deliberately because we believe that as much as we had presenters here who are doing their LLB, and others who are still doing their LLM, and others who are doing their PhD, and then of course we had established scholars who are professors and senior lecturers and so forth, it was important for us to groom the next LLB student who is now in high school. They came, they saw, they conquered. The type of questions those kids were asking left me thinking when I was doing my introduction to law. I remember one of the words that made me scratch my head was the word legislation. I was like, how is legislation different from law? And I had to go and consult the dictionary. This was way back before Google was a thing. So I couldn't have Googled that word. I had to go to the library, peruse the shelves, dusty shelves, get a dictionary, and realize, oh, law and legislation is one thing. Now you have these kids here who come and ask questions about the law of war, a very complex field of law, which confounds even the most learned amongst us. You see them going into commercial law and they are raising critical issues. Dr. Morodi was at pains to explain. What was it, Doc, that you were explaining to them about construction mafias and stuff like that? And those kids had questions around those issues. Questions that some of us as adults struggle to portray or to put across. But such is the diversity of the conferences that we hold. We hold these conferences because our belief is simply that tomorrow's professors cannot be made tomorrow. They must be made today. And if we drop the ball, we run the risk of us reaching the day of retirement and going home and leaving behind no professor to take over. And that cannot be. If this continent is to move forward, we make tomorrow's professors today. As we always say, it takes a village to raise a child. We often think it means, a rudimentary structure somewhere in the rurals that raises a child. We are the village now. We are an academic village. We are a scholarly village. We are an intellectual village. We must raise tomorrow's professors. We must raise tomorrow's lawyers. We must raise tomorrow's judges, tomorrow's advocates through these conferences that we have. Ladies and gentlemen, mine is to invite you to consider throwing in your paper for next year for the coming conference. I might have forgotten to also mention some of our colleagues here. Some of them are research fellows in our midst who assisted us greatly. Some of them are postdoctoral fellows. I will not mention them one by one, but they know I'm talking about them. They're here, they're in our midst. They were very instrumental in rolling out the program that we rolled out. So on behalf of the deanery, on behalf of our Vice Chancellor, Professor Puleng Lenkabula, and the entire management of the university, I thank you for having come and for having participated. And let us continue the interactions that we started. Let us continue this network that we have started and move the continent forward. I thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dube, for that introduction and the remarks on behalf of the deanery. You know, as Professor Dube was speaking, now the academic and the supervisor in me is coming alive, and I'm pondering in my head, I'm like, I see a couple students of mine who are actually my master's students in this room, but I'm not going to call them out. Those very same students I'm looking at right now ought to have presented papers, a portion of the chapters at this conference, because there is nothing more practical about a strategy for transformation and reformation than actually actuating the child, actuating the student in front of you to start now. I think students these days have this conception of, I will do it when I'm a doctor, I will do it when I'm a professor, I will do it when I graduate my master's, I will do it when I graduate my PhD, without the foresight of understanding that in order for you to do all those latter things, you ought to have done a few other preliminary things. I was speaking to Professor Rex right over there, and we were hearkening back to the olden days, back in 2015, when I was in my third year of undergrad. My mentor and I, Professor Dube, we were both not even with UNISA at the time. We were both with our respective universities. And we saw a call for papers for a conference here at UNISA. And we submitted an abstract, and it was picked up, and we came to present. Years ago, all three of us were actually in this very room on these seats presenting the paper that, you know, has now been referenced I don't know how many times. And so many people, you know, will say, Sigalala, you've done so much for your age. How did you do it? I started young. I saw the need to participate, not only in the room, but also beyond the room. So look out for opportunities. And now I'm speaking more directly to the, you know, students and the budding researchers in the room. Don't only look for opportunities within UNISA to carve out your niche, to carve out your skill in academics, in practice litigation, or whatever. Look beyond. And the only reason I was able to even get into a room where I was able to meet people like Professor Dube, Dr. Morode, was because I went online and I saw what opportunities were there for a third-year law student who did not really know exactly, you know, where he wanted to feature in the world, but all he knew was, I wanted to feature. I just did not have the specifics back then, but what I knew is I wanted to feature somewhere. I wanted to do something. I wanted to say something. And I think along, or perhaps in tandem with featuring and taking up space, honing your opinion and honing the skill as an academic or as an aspirant lawyer, aspirant advocate, aspirant judge comes along with that. So many students come to us, and I'm sure Dr. Moroti and Professor Dube and Dr. Mhlongo will attest to this. So many students say, I want to do something, but I just don't know how to phrase it. I want to say something, but I'm just not sure whether my opinion is valid. Is it you know, defendable in law? Is it the truth? Is it fact? And I said, listen, the first step into manifesting or perhaps harvesting that opinion and chiseling it into something as high quality as a paper or perhaps as a conference presentation is to start. Start having the idea. And you do that by starting to realize the chasms in our law, the chasms or perhaps the gray areas in practice and philosophy, in the application or interpretation of laws. That is how you start. And you always have to exploit the people who came before you. Your mentors, your leaders, your chairs of departments. I'm one, I will say it straight up, I would phone Prof. Dube at 2 a.m. in the morning, because he told me I could, so I did. Prof. Dube, I'm just reading an article here, and I'm not sure whether it's applicable to the paper we're writing. Do you think it is? Ask the people who've done this before. Don't be too afraid because he's a professor. No. He's there to help you grow. He's there to make sure that you also take up the space that is afforded to you, or perhaps to even carve out your own space where you feel like you've been marginalized, perhaps in opinion, in your society, in all of those regards. So please take that with you. Again, a round of applause for Prof. Dube for that heartfelt welcome and message from the deanery.